Hunting is not easy. It never has been. It takes dedication, motivation, a lot of patience, and quality gear. If you manage a food plot, put up stands, or need just one more game camera, we can help at MidwayUSA.com. We opened our doors in 1977 and continue to put customers first by offering super fast, same-day shipping. For just about everything for the outdoors, go to MidwayUSA.com. Midway USA has an extensive selection of bullets, providing top-notch performance and accuracy for the cartridge you plan on reloading. If you plan to hunt, shoot competitively, plink at the range, or even load up some self-defense rounds, Midway USA has the popular brands, calibers, diameters, and grain weights of bullets you are searching for. First-time reloaders, bulk bullet buyers, and seasoned specialty shooters begin their search for bullets at Midway USA. For just about everything for reloading, shop MidwayUSA.com.
Sitting up there jacked up Pepsi.
I'm there for the pack out. You just got to pack me in.
Committed to the bow early on. Like, I love getting close and putting up.
You cover a range of stuff on here too, right? Like,
we call this the THP World Headquarters.
You know, my grandpa Roy Weatherby.
I came into like that golden little pocket where there was like 4 or 5 different bowls. Just
You're Canadian? We're doing a Canadian podcast.
My name's Douglas Bode.
I'm Robbie Denning.
Roy Candy.
Yeah. So everyone made it. Stuckless, I'm glad you grew that fucking beard back because I wasn't going to let you on the show unless you did.
Yeah, well, then I'd have my morning, so maybe I'll shave it off again so I don't have to get up for these.
Do you think we can get one of those little filters or something so we can draw a little, like we can change his
maybe
or something every time?
So it's different every time it comes on. It's a little different.
I was at the Canucks game a while back, and the camera gets us pre-game there, and that's what they did. I had a beard, but then they enhanced it, turned it into this giant orange beard down there. So,
oh really?
It would be good for today, St. Paddy's Day. It'd probably be suiting. So,
awesome.
I love it. What do you got hanging behind you there on the wall? Is that new, or was that always there?
No, that's always been there. Just maybe I got the angle a little different, but yeah, that's just a little moose I got. There's a couple back there.
No big deal. Pete, did you hang your moose from this year up on the wall?
Yeah, it's fucking too big to come into the house, Kevin.
Oh yeah, right.
Get it in the door.
Right. You had that LEH and you blew it. I forgot. Sorry.
Yeah, there's that.
I put my bow back together. Did a bit of shooting yesterday.
What do you mean?
The secret with the eye? Well, I got new strings and put it on, and I had 2 bows that Athens sent me. I had set the elevate up, and then I just set the axis up. So, but I was telling Pete, so like I had that eye injury, and then I had to get surgery, and I couldn't shoot for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks. And then I got the clear from the doctor the other day to shoot, so I went outside and shot. And I guess I just overshot because the next one I was laying in bed, I was like, fuck, my eye was just throbbing. But he said don't strain it too much. So I think I just overdid it. But I shot a few arrows yesterday and it was fine. So maybe that's a key, Pete, is just take it slow.
Yeah. Don't keep pushing all the time. Take a day off. Oh, that's good. That's something to protect for sure. You don't want to screw around with your eyesight.
Derek, did you get some strings made up?
Oh, I haven't yet. I got a bunch of shit to deal with here.
What type of material do you use for your string, or do you know?
I can't remember what it is now. I was going to use ABB has a new material out. It's slightly changed from their platinum.
Oh yeah.
It's had a high durability.
Yeah.
Like different durability rating. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that. Truthfully, I shot, and then I kind of think because I just had the factory string on it, hey? Like I was just trying to ride that out as long as I could. I'm starting to see, I think, a little bit of variation in stretch.
Yeah. Do you have a scale?
Yeah, I lost a little bit of poundage, not much, but It's like I think I'm down like 1 or 2 pounds.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just stretching over time, right?
I wonder if that's similar to the BCY 99. I like that a little better than the 452X, just because they can get more strands in there and it's
yeah,
tighter. I find it's tighter.
because I
So
have noticed that like the platinums they shoot great, but they do suffer from a little bit of durability. Like if you go on a couple, like I really keep track of that on stocks because I did push the limits on an elk hunt where it was just sopping wet, and I did shoot an elk, but yeah, it was like frayed when I brought it into my house and like put it on the heater. Holy, it was just like
yeah.
fuzz. And then the interior, I had a strand break just pushing through some buckbrush, trying to not get cliffed out. And it must have caught on my peep and tore one of the strands. But just definitely looking for that durability, especially with mule deer.
Yeah, with the 99 over the 452, I do find that like it's just the fray and stuff and the wear in your string is a lot better. You don't have to wax your string as much. Some guys swear by the 452, but Pete and I, we were talking about, do you use mixed colors in your string or do you use like a solid color?
I'll usually use like a speckle or a mix. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing with mix is like when they make those strings, the dye that they use, the ink that they use in those strings, it makes it a lot thicker. So sometimes you do get uneven like winding in your string if you use colored. So like with I got some 452 made for that Elevate because I'm gonna just do a comparison of the two, the 452 and the 99, and I got black and yellow. Like one solid black, one solid yellow. So I'm gonna shoot 1,000 arrows and then switch them and shoot 1,000 just to see what the difference is in like terms of peep twist, like the poundage it keeps, and then just the wear on the strings. So it'll be interesting to see. But I know like so when they're using a thinner string like the 99, you can get 28 strands in there where you're using, I think it was 21 strands on the 452, but if you use a color, you actually get even less strands than that. Now the problem with less strands is that obviously it's not going to be as strong, right? It's not going to hold the cord as tight.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I've been sticking to natural colors again. Like for a while there, I was using like lime green and shit like that, but now I'm sticking to like black, brown.
Yeah, Pete and I were talking about he's going for function over the look, which I think he should do the opposite. I mean, he should definitely go for the look. He needs every edge you can get.
See, we're gonna put a disclaimer out here. I got 2 other witnesses right now. Anybody who's listening to this, I'm heading to Kelowna in a couple weeks to join Kevin with the BC Interior Sportsman.
These other two guys are going to be there too.
Awesome. I knew Ashley was going to be there. I wasn't sure on Derek yet though.
Yeah.
Awesome.
He Stuckless finally. Yeah. I mean, I invited him. I think he's going to come anyway. He'll probably just do like he did on our whitetail hunt, just like call me
Crash
and say,
my truck.
So I'm just
wipe my truck out. Sorry, I can't make the show.
Don't do that, please.
No.
Anyway,
Pete doesn't want to be up there with me alone.
I got to get this. I got to get this out because I got to keep my eye on Kevin. We're gonna rebuild my bow here, put on new strings, cables, take a look at everything.
Karma's a bitch.
I'm
boys.
just saying,
Karma's a bitch.
He's just been accusing me of a lot of stuff at the last couple of years at our 3D shoot that I've been messing with his bow, and now I'm gonna let him tear mine apart. So let's. I just want to have a disclaimer right now. If I start shooting 4 feet to the left or right, he's really fuckered with something.
No, I'm gonna set it up so it's gonna be all gravy, but it's gonna have a shelf life. So I'm gonna time it. Come the end of June, it'll just be like, what the fuck? No, I'm just kidding.
Where is that? Are you guys doing that shoot again this year?
Yeah. July 6th and 7th, I believe, is the Saturday, Sunday. It's the weekend after the long weekend of July.
Where is that?
Radium, BC.
Oh, in Radium. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's only like 3 hours from Corey or Sir Derek.
Oh no, it's
so while we say that, so okay, I call everybody by their last name. So like Stuckless, I call all the guys at work Basso. So like for the listeners of the show, if you hear me call Derek Corey, it's just because it's his last name. Don't think that there's another guy on the show or anything. It's just I have a habit. Like even when we're at like when I'm hanging with my brothers, I call my brothers like Toy or Toysy. And it's funny, they call me the same. So like when we all get together, it's like nobody knows who you're talking to. So if the listeners, if once in a while you hear me say Corey, it's just because I have a like bad habit. It's from hockey. When I played hockey, you call everybody by their last name. And like very rarely do I ever say Ashley. I just say Stuckless. So just so you know, disclaimer there on that one.
I'm just picturing you and your brothers, Doisy,
Yeah.
going around.
Or like, well, you have to
that's what I got. I'm like, oh, then you guys are like,
you should see it. It's quite comical, but it's just and like all
Lord.
my buddies growing up, like Kosmiak or Kiesman, or like I use their last name, and like even the guys that work for me, I only call them like I call Basso or Bowman, or I always call them by their last name. So anybody that listening, if you're wondering why once in a while I'll call Derek Corey, it's because his last name is Corey, and I just have a habit of calling everyone by their last name. Derek doesn't like it when I call him by his last name.
I don't either.
I don't give a shit.
Fuck, dude. Your last name's like a novel, so it's almost
that's why
impossible.
most people won't do it. I got nicknames coming out of the yin yang. Nobody ever calls me.
Yeah.
It just
Well,
takes
it's
too much
funny too,
effort.
because even like my wife, I'll call her by her maiden name, last name all the time, and she fucking hates it. So I could just keep doing it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just wanted to throw there out because once in a while I'll call Derek Corey, but it's just like if his last name was different, you'd be more
Yeah,
obvious.
it makes sense.
But anyway, I'm sure they figured it out after,
Oh yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah.
That string is 452 XE.
Oh, okay. Right on.
Yeah.
What are you guys even talking about? What's what's the number represent?
For fuck's sake, Stuckless.
Well, sorry guys, I'm not the
Did you not send him the pamphlet?
Okay, well, it's for another time. You probably dove into this many times, so don't do it on my accord.
It's just string. So once I get you into archery here, hopefully within the next, sooner than later.
10 years.
Whoa.
10 years? No, you have.
No, I won't be able to draw a bow in 10 years, man.
Well, I got some kids' bows we can start you out with. You just
I got those. Hey, my sons have bows for sure. So I got the kids' bows already.
Yeah. Well, Stuckless, I'm gonna get you hooked on this year. Maybe we'll do a whitetail hunt, late season whitetail hunt this year.
And you'll have no choice.
Yeah, I think we owe it to ourselves to do that for sure.
Well, I mean, yeah. Like I no offense, buddy, but I just have like we get all these hunts planned, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll just wait. Yeah. I'm not gonna write it in permanent ink yet. Just pencil it in.
Like, how many have I missed? Once, or did we did have to
hey,
change
man, I'm
that
gonna
bear
tell you.
hunt.
I'm gonna just say one thing.
That bear hunt
you could build a million bridges, or you could suck one cock, and you never notice.
Yeah, that's yeah.
You're not gonna be remembered as a bridge builder.
No, I got it.
Anyway, so hey, dude, your office looks pretty pimp in there. Look, you got it all set up now. You got your screens. So, like, what screen? Ashley was telling me about his setup he has there. Explain it. Like, he's got a 52-inch computer screen or something like that. Crazy.
Yeah, it's a 50-inch. 50-inch.
Is that what you're looking into? That's not what you're looking into now.
No, this is my secondary monitor, and then I have my main screen that I'm looking into here, and then my editing screen you can't see it. It's right here. It's just sitting out on the far reaches of my desk there, and that way I can have the whole timeline laid, like everything laid out on the one screen, except for a couple little ancillary screens that I use for editing. But yeah, it makes it a lot easier.
What's your chair like that you're sitting on? It must be pretty comfy. Because every time I talk to you or call you or text you, you're fucking working. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. It could be 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing? You awake? Yeah,
I
I'm working.
spent a lot of time in here, but that's a funny story. My son, who's he likes to spend a lot of time on his computer and that too. He just like I had this $700, office gaming chair, but it was a little more of an office chair, but he's seen that and he's hawked it. So now I'm back to, well,
Like a folding lawn chair or something?
yeah, no, but it's a what would be a just a quality office chair basically.
I love how you go to buy like those chairs for your kids. They add the word gaming on it, and they add another $300 comes with the word gaming.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
hilarious.
for
Just
sure.
because it's different color, same chair.
Yeah. Yeah, this
Anyway,
one's just a black leather chair, but it's yeah, he liked it.
yeah, surprise! Like for the people that don't know you, you're actually one of the hardest fucking working guys I think I've ever met.
Wow. I'm sure there's harder workers out there, but I can grind. I
Like, is
can
there?
grind.
And it's funny. Like, guys are always like a lot of people use the term like you're never gonna outwork me, but that applies to a lot of stuff. Like, you're always working. You're always working. Like, you're always working at work. Like, you own your own business, and
Yeah.
then like in between that, you have this other business you do, which is filming and editing for your TV show. And then you
Yeah.
also have to like you still have to be a dad and a husband, which is like, you know,
I don't know how you do it.
that's a lot. Like
It's
it's a full-time job being just a dad and a husband.
yeah, it's kind of got it down to a system, but sometimes it gets out of control, but I've got it down to a system. I mean, I take advantage of getting up early because, the family operates on a regular family schedule. And if I'm super busy, like you'll find me up by about 4:30. Um, and then, it's amazing what I found, especially when I sort of, I have my regular, you know, engineering job. That's I get 2 or 3 40-hour weeks a year and the rest are 60-hour weeks. So it's pretty busy.
That's
Mainly
just
at the
60 hours a
computer.
week. Yeah, but this is what I'm talking about. Like you manage a lot and you do it very well.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I use the video editing as sort of as the putty in between. Like as soon as I don't have a meeting, as soon as I don't have, a deliverable that I'm really crunching to get out, there's an hour of time that I just put over to the high BC side of things. But really, it's the key is that early morning, like in that first 2 or 3 hours of a day, I probably am get 90% of the volume of the work that I'm going to get done outside of my regular job done at that moment. And then only when I get into crunch time with deliverables and stuff do I start doing okay, the family's gone to bed. Let's go and crank out 3 hours till midnight, then go, and then go monster mode. But and then what I find is I'm pretty diligent at putting tools down, between 5 and 6 o'clock. Like I'm pretty dedicated to, making sure that, we're doing dinner together and we're doing the family time together, watching a movie together, we're going for soccer together, whatever. And then it's if I'm behind, I'm always looking to get back to catch up, basically.
yeah, that's the hardest part is trying to stay on top of it and not fall behind. And when you talk to most people like yourselves that are entrepreneurs and have a family and they also have this, hobbies and like your hobby just happens to be almost like another business. I mean, you really have to utilize those early mornings. And it's funny, like you talk to like some people, like I have guys that work for me and they're like, man, I never seem to be able to get ahead. They're like, oh, I want to get in better shape. My back's sore, my knees hurt. I need to start doing stuff, start moving. It's like, well, why don't you? Well, I just don't have enough time because I go to work, start work at 7, work till 3:30, go home, and it's like obligations at home, kids have extracurricular activities, and then it's like spending quality time with your kids, but they just don't understand the utilization of time. And that's one thing that I think that all successful people, that's a trait all successful people have. And again, we talked about this when Greg was on, like success is all in the eye of the beholder. It's different for everybody, right? But you have to really you can't waste any time. That's the biggest thing. So if you got to use it in the morning, if you spend an hour or even half an hour, get up a little earlier, do some push-ups, some sit-ups. I mean, amazing where time can go if you use it correctly.
Ashley, do you find when you're doing your editing and stuff, if you have to, I mean, with how busy you are, like you get, kind of in that groove and you got things going the way you want. And then obviously your other obligations come up, whether it's work, family, and then you come back to it, either whether it's later that day or, the next day or whatever. Do you have a hard time getting back into that groove, or do you have your mind pretty focused as to what you're looking for, like when you're editing? You know what I mean? Like you've obviously got some kind of mental picture of what you want, or does it kind of set you back having to take the breaks and then try to get back into that groove for speed, for efficiency, I guess?
Yeah, for efficiency. It used to set me back really, really hard. Like it was hard because and I still am, there's so much you're learning, that learning takes time for sure, and focus and concentration. Once you get the muscle memory down a little more, which I feel I'm in the middle of that, is then I can't, and because of the way my life and work blend is, I've become more efficient at doing that. I sort of make a mental once I, hit save and shut Premiere down, and I know I'm not going to get back to it for 6 or 7 hours. I sort of, that's where it's left off in my brain. So when I reboot up, the way the software sort of saves and holds your last head position, so it's not like you're going around searching where you were. You get more used to being able to plug on and off. I think overall I'd still be far more productive if that was my only job and I could sit there and grind it out. But yeah, I've got it to a spot where it's not frustrating at this point.
That's good.
Huh. So you guys want to talk long range stuff? That's why we got you on the show. I mean, to talk long range. You and Derek are like the long range guys. I wanted to hear you guys battle it out on long range stock. Not battle it out, just talk about long range. So Derek is going to be doing, when he's down here, he's going to be doing this presentation at the place that they hold the BC Interior Sportsman Show, and all the listeners, I hope you guys can make it. It's a big facility. It's got 2 rinks. It's got a bar in there. It's got a gym, bunch of other stuff. And it's got 2 soccer fields. And so basically they take the 2 soccer fields out and they host it in there. But off one of the rinks, there's this little, it's a fairly big, and they're going to do a big dinner, I think it's a beer and burger night, from the, just off location of the bar. And you got to buy tickets to it. And Derek is doing a big presentation on long range shooting. And I know when we were talking on the phone the other day, you got into long range shooting, and I'm like, dude, I have no fucking idea. It's kind of like when we were talking about strings. You're like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? And I have no idea. I was like, well, let's get you on the show again, and you and Derek can talk long range, and me and Pete could sit here and say, what the fuck are you guys talking about? So you're shooting for Fierce now? Is that like legit? That's your go-to brand?
That's legit.
Is that custom? Are those custom rifles that they use?
No, they're not custom guns. I mean, they do have some options, but I'm using, these are factory guns. They're just built to a higher tolerance than most factory guns that are on offer. So I've had a lot of success with them for sure. So
Derek, what was that gun that you had on last time? Was that a custom gun, or was that?
Yeah, that was a full custom. So that one was a Maverick Carbon tactical heavy. So the carbon is because it has a carbon fiber barrel. That one's a right hand bolt left-hand feed all the way up to I think the bolt face can carry up to, I think it is engineered up to 375, but now with pretty much we're limited to 338 with that new bill that came in for max energy. But yeah, it's a heavy duty rifle, that is for sure. It comes in at around, I think, fully loaded 11 pounds. The carbon barrel cut off a pound. And then I have another one that's a lighter version of that. Well, I'll go back to the heavier one. So it's a Macmillan Kevlar and carbon fiber stock. Fully bedded, Timney Elite trigger, the Maverick Alberta Tactical Action. They're local guys. They've always supported, shoots and PRS and stuff. So I tried one of their actions out. They're always pretty good for me. And then a Proof Research carbon fiber barrel, and then one of their 3-port brakes as well. It's a thermal Loctite one. So moving forward, I go to like a beveled self timer now. So like it has a beveled edge, so you can time it and screw it in. Then you just push it in, and then it retains that top center point for your center bore line. You just push that in, and you can thread it in as much as you want. It's pretty handy.
That's slick.
Yeah,
that's slick because it's better than crush washers and just trying to work it out yourself or. Yeah, because that's got to be set perfect. You can kind of tune with that then pretty good.
Yeah, and there is one that I was looking at, there is the Hellfire as well. And Inside Arms, they have a really good one too. For me, mostly what I found is, because I don't really clean my rifles, I'll go like up to 200 rounds before I clean. That's just the working parameters. That's one thing
Sorry, Derek, one sec. What should you be cleaning your rifle at? Like how many rounds?
So this is controversial again.
Very controversial, but we're kind of on the same page.
Yeah. So, and this goes for, so like I've set up quite a few Fierce rifles, so like Fierce, Chris Arms, they're in that semi-custom criteria. So they do have a lot of the features that you're looking for in a custom rifle. And then they also have some very nice as far as offerings for barrel construction. So you got your steel sporter barrels, you have your carbon barrels, you have a lot of stuff going on. So when you get into that like Fierce, Chris Arms, one of my best barrels is on a Chris Arms blank on a this would be like a semi-custom. So the only thing that's not been changed is the action. Everything else has been changed. The barrel, that's the one that is probably my most successful rifle hunting. It's a tan rifle. It's got a Macmillan Game Warden stock on it. It's a carbon fiber one. The action is a blueprinted Remington action. So basically when they say blueprinted, so essentially I send it off to a gunsmith. They return the depth and shape of the threads. So what they'll do is they'll put in a lathe, they'll square it up on the lathe, and then they'll essentially make sure it's all concentric, and they'll square up their cutter. They'll square off the dimensions of the bolt face interiorly. So then your bolt face is square and straight, and then they'll take your lugs, they'll square them up, and then the front of them, front of the recoil lug, they'll have that squared, and then that is
why is that important?
Well, it's like when I was talking about your shot-to-shot variations being pretty much reloading. Well, you can't build anything square or concentric off of a non-square action.
Okay, but I get, like, how much are we talking, like, by
like within a thousandths? It's very, very tight. Yeah.
Okay, so when you buy, so the difference between, is that like the difference between, like, you just go to the Cabela's and buy a Savage off the shelf?
Yeah. So like a better example of that would be like the Remingtons, the old Remingtons. Remington's gone now, but Remington had a lot of issues, right? So when you take your gun to get rebarreled from a gunsmith, what they're going to use is they're going to use a new reaming tool, it's basically a new cutter, and that cutter is a lot more sharp and less worn down. Because when you're on a factory floor, they have a tolerance they have to meet. So they know how many barrels they can cut in, how many chambers they can run before they switch out that cutter, right? So what's that going to do? Well, there's a tolerance. They're going to run it. The first few are going to be extremely accurate. And then the back end is going to be extremely sloppy, right? Or very tight. There'll be some variation of that, right? So then what you end up getting is what's called machine lines inside the chamber. And that's just, you'll see like a little, it's almost like a burr. It's very faint. And what that'll do is sometimes that'll grab your cases. Like I had one gun, well, for a while there, it was like every factory Remington that was coming off the floor. Like if you're running high pressure loads, like at near the max, when I go to extract, like it would be bound up so hard you could barely extract brass. So I'd have to on one of them, like I had to I had to put a cleaning rod on the end and then smack it out with a mallet as I'm lifting the bolt. Like that's how tight. So there are issues with factory barrels. So, you know, I'm not saying that they're all junk. Some will be great. The Tikas are really good. The barrels are typically slow. That's one criticism I have with that is
slow.
just, yeah, they tend to shoot slow. They'll hit their pressure at a slower velocity for bullet projectile. So like say if you were to verse that versus like a Fierce will typically be a couple feet faster. And
Oh, I thought so. Like that, I thought it was all just had to do with like your bullet loading, had to do with the speed of the bullet.
To a degree, it has to do with what type of interface fit, like how much the bore interior. So that's why
Gotcha.
like button cut barrels and match barrels.
So
oh
like
my God,
if
we're getting
like
down the rabbit hole real quick.
Yeah.
okay, but like
Yeah.
so I'm picturing it now from what you said. Like if you hold, say you're holding like a firework in your hand and you don't quite close it all the way, it's not going to have as much explosion as it would if you had like zero gaps and like completely confined space, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, and two, it has to do with like your rifling.
so
Your
like more rifling.
depends on how many grooves, depends, like there's a lot of factors. So typically, so where you see this is like, say if I took like
Peter, you awake out? Okay, I just make sure Pete was awake.
so if I like took a Fierce rifle and I shot like a 300 Win, 185 or like a 200 208 or something like that. Okay, I just
208 what do you
208 weight of projectile, 208
okay.
grain projectile. If I were to take
Gotcha.
that 208 and I shoot in the Fierce and I shoot in the Tika, the Fierce will be going a little bit faster. That's just typical. That's just a tendency. It's pretty well known. Doesn't mean they don't shoot. The Tikas are great. They shoot great.
So
But
why is that one shooting? It's just better quality?
just well, there'll be Fierce will definitely have a higher quality. So depending on the barrels, like Bartline barrels, they do a button cut, I believe, and so they're able to control with the cutter instead of swaging. So there's two techniques. They know what works. There's one that it like as it's running through, it's swaging, so it's just kind of conforming the interior of the bore to then accommodate the rifling, and they just keep doing that, and they do pass after pass after pass. And that's what I believe that's what benchmark barrels they're doing. And then Bartline is a button cut. So they actually take a cutter and they run up and down and they can control within 4 decimal places of the interior diameter. And they guarantee that. So then if you know what works and you're running a Bartline, they can control that to the 4th decimal place interior. So you pretty much know what you're getting, right? And that's the difference between a factory rifle when we're talking barrel and concentricity. So like a factory barrel, it could have the end of an assembly line on the action, but then the start on the assembly line of the barrel. But then, or it could be the end of the assembly line on for like their cutter, for the action, and then the end on the assembly line for the cutter and for the barrel chamber. So what ends up happening is you'll have all these things compounding. That's how you get the lemons, right? So those guys, and that has to do with bullet and chamber alignment. So when you go to shoot a real tiny group, that's because it's repeatable, right? So if you're launching that projectile and it's hitting the lands at the exact same XY axis inside that bore, it's then going to pitch off and launch and shoot in the exact same position. And then it also too will straighten brass when you're shooting it and reloading it. So there's a lot of things going on. But then when we talk about barrel construction, so say like a Fierce or like a full match barrel, like some like full customs versus a factory, that's the main difference. Is you won't see as much of a point of impact change depending on temperature. So then, and because those match barrels, they'll guarantee usually half MOA accuracy. But that's because there is no stress in the barrels. So in factory barrels, it's an assembly line. They cut them, they screw them on, and they send them out the door. And when they do that, it is full of stress. And the barrel, that's why some of those, like especially like the Ruger Hawkeyes used to be notorious for that, like the 7MMs, like stuff with huge overbore. Those barrels will heat way up, and then you'll see an impact change because of that, because there's stress in the barrel. So as that temperature heats up, the grain of the steel in the barrel, it has that quote unquote memory of that stress build up in that barrel. So then it'll start to kind of bend off and start releasing that bullet at a different point of the barrel whip. And so with match barrels, they heat them up to like 800 degrees. They put plugs on both ends and they put them in an oven, and that temperature change allows the grain structure to realign, and then there is no more because of that, there's no more point of impact stress. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Okay.
So back to what we were talking about for cleaning.
Oh, is that how we got going down?
Yeah,
this?
that's how we got going on this.
Okay. For the people who are listening, we keep giggling at Pete here because it looks like he's falling asleep, but he just went and grabbed a bottle of booze, and I think it's like 8:30 where he is. So I didn't tell Pete what the conversation was going to be today because I knew he was going to say he had to go ice fishing or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so the steel, we'll get back. Okay, well, let's just give me a rough number on average cleaning.
So
rounds.
So going back into like those barrel and the barrel construction, how they cut the barrel, that is, and two, how you break in your barrel, that's really going to determine your operating range of rounds. So essentially, whenever you have a new barrel or a new gun, always clean out your barrel right away. Like
before you shoot it?
Yeah, always.
Oh,
always.
See, I always just shot it all year, didn't clean it, and then shoot it clean it at the beginning.
So this is like a brand new gun. You went to the store, you bought a new Fierce rifle, like what Ashley's shooting. You always want to clean them, and the reason is because depending on if they screwed in that barrel right away, most factory builders are a little bit better now because they realize that guys, potentially if you forget, you could cause some debris in your barrel. Yeah, I would clean out the inside of the bore, the chamber. I would clean that out pretty thoroughly, pretty good. Biggest thing with clean, and that's just to make sure there's no debris, there's no chips, there's nothing in there that's going to cause.
How would you tell if there was? Like, I mean, I know debris, but like chips and shit.
It's peace of mind, like with like Remington and Savage, for sure. Like I'll see like shit from the factory that they didn't catch. I'll see like some grease, oil. Think about if you had oil in there. If it's in longer term storage, if there's oil in there, and a lot of them will do that to protect the barrel. If there's oil in there.
I'm assuming oil's no good.
No, because think about it. You're shooting a high pressure projectile at high speed through a bore with oil. That's going to hydraulically affect. That's going to hydraulically impact the inside of that.
Oh, so like
that
rusting
barrel.
your old barrel off with like diesel fluid and like an SOS pad is not recommended.
No. Well, and you know, for some of those older guns, there's different stuff. You know, what I'm talking about in particular is mostly 416R type stainless steel. That's pretty much the standard as far as barrel steel that they're using. It's pretty resistant to rusting, corrosion. It's not impervious, but it's pretty resistant, and it does have a pretty good lifespan as far as round count, etc. But so when we're cleaning, you get a brand new gun, clean that out. And then the next thing I would do is to, like, depending on when you're doing your load workups, I would wait until some guns are really bad, but like
So what's
200
load workup? Dude,
So,
I'm a
like-
fucking dummy when it comes to rifle. You got to break this all down to me.
So, okay, so I'll backtrack and then I'll come back to that.
Okay,
But-
we're still trying to get the
Past cleaning. We're still past cleaning. So
we're still
initially,
trying, yeah.
initially, so initially when you get your gun, you clean your bore out really well, and then you start working up your break-in period. Some guys don't believe in break-in. I believe in break-in, but only to, and this is again depending on what your objective is. I'm trying to create an environment where when I'm breaking in, I have cleaned out any copper fouling on the lands in order to facilitate additional wear by the projectile to smooth out any inconsistencies of the bore at a slightly faster rate to get into my peak performance range of round count. So what that means is initially you have a lot of inconsistencies at the start of the barrel life. It tends to pick up a little bit of speed. Sometimes some of them wear down and there's a little bit less. But essentially what you're trying to do is just
Like
get
wear
a
down
little
the
worn up.
inside of the
Yeah.
inside of the barrel.
Yeah.
So if you don't clean it, will it wear down the inside of your barrel more often?
Yeah. No, it'll
Can
less.
you over clean it less?
Oh yeah, less. Yeah. Because then you have copper fouling. So every time and I don't get into projectiles with coatings. I
What
don't.
do you mean coatings?
Like some guys will want to coat it with moly. Some will want like
Like coat the whole casing?
the
Or just the
bullet,
bullet?
the projectile. That has died off, and that's, I think, probably a good thing, because you get some of these coatings are just, there aren't solvents for them. Typically you got to use
Like
high
to clean it
abrasives.
after.
Yeah. So I don't like them.
What was the theory and the benefit of having that on there?
They thought it was consistency of like friction. But I haven't seen that. And two, it's what kind of makes you feel good, right? Like for what projectiles you're using. But anyway, so once we're past the break-in period, we're getting into our
How many?
our-
Okay. What is the break-in period?
it depends on the barrel.
Oh.
It really does. It depends on the barrel.
Okay, so like a really good barrel would have less break-in time than a real shitty barrel, or is it the opposite?
Yep. Yeah. So a match
What about
barrel,
what about those carbon barrels?
so all my personal guns have carbons, all of them.
So
They're really
what the
sorry,
fuck is a
Ashley.
carbon barrel, first of all?
So essentially a carbon barrel it's a normal match barrel that they've put on a lathe, and they've ran down the interior of so basically they'll leave the shank portion. So that's the portion where they chamber the round, they push the reamer in, they chamber it, because we need that strength built up off the action, right? For that case to be suspended in there. So then we're not, like, obviously for safety reasons, whether it's 2.25 off the end of the shank, and then it starts tapering, and depending on if it's, usually all the carbons are like Sendero type contour, so they're beefy looking barrels. But so they put that blank on a lathe, and then they essentially cut it down the diameter in order to facilitate the reduction in weight. And then they do layers.
Like the outside diameter, right?
Yeah. So they'll have it where it's like full length diameter of steel, and then there's a sharp line, and then they cut down so that the barrel's thinner, and then they extend it out, and then that's the end of your muzzle.
And then they wrap carbon around. What's the point of the carbon?
So the carbon is for lightweight and for rigidity. They tip their
for stiffness. I get
yeah,
it. Okay,
yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
Stuckless, is that what are your guns carbon barrels?
Yeah, everything's gone carbon for me now. I mean, for the hunting application, dropping that extra half to a full pound is pretty essential.
Is that why
And
they do it? Is that the purpose of that? Is for
that's one of them. And then because you get the larger diameter, because in order to, you can run a Sendero contour at the weight of a small sporter thin walled barrel, you get the benefits of having a whip in your gun that's a lot more consistent. You can group up the gun typically better. Typically that extra rigidity of having, a barrel that's about that big around as opposed to, that big around tapered out. It makes a big difference in I've had good success with both my Fierce guns and with the Christian Arms that was carbon fiber barrel.
So when you say whip, is that what you were talking about last time, Corey? Is like the consistency in that whip?
So, and we can even bring it back to what Corey was talking about having, everything squared up. So when that bullet, that projectile takes the jump, it's not touching the barrel. If it's not square, it has a rough jump. So when it goes into that barrel, it actually puts extra harmonics or whip. So this isn't a whip that you see with your naked eye, but imagine the violence of pushing something, 3,000 feet per second in a matter of a couple milliseconds through a tube. It's very violent and it creates a whip. The extra diameter in the barrel actually helps smoothen that out, where you can really fine tune your load. You're still going to have to reload. You're still going to, to get the optimum performance out of it, you're going to reload to find that right node where that vibration is very consistent. And then you're dealing with something that can be very reliable and shoot, better than 1/2 inch groups.
So Derek, well, I was going to ask you a question. Now I totally got sidetracked there on what it was like,
you were talking about last time he was talking about a wave or something.
Yeah, it was actually before that, but that makes sense. So Derek, before he was explaining like the whip and then just the consistency of that when the barrel, like when the bullet leaves the barrel. Now, Derek, does that, so like how can that be consistent every time? That doesn't so how much whip are we talking about in that?
Quite a bit of whip. So essentially, like you said, what Ashley's talking about, like with carbon barrels, you have that bonus rigidity. So it's a handoff, right? You get a larger diameter barrel for much less weight cost. So it still would be probably a little bit heavier than like a pencil barrel, but it's not going to heat up as much. It's going to be a hell of a lot more rigid, and it's going to be more consistent because of that. Typically, what I've seen personally is, and this is lots of carbons, lots of like big diameter target stuff, lighter weight hunting rifles. What I have seen is that the carbons tend to tune faster. Their whip is like it's a pronounced whip, and it's dampened almost, I wouldn't say like instantaneously, but it doesn't tend to vibrate that much after that initial whip, versus like a steel barrel will whip and then it has that harmonics that continues on. So like with steel barrels, you could accidentally well, not accidentally, but essentially you could try and time your loads off of a node where it's not as consistent as maybe a different position of your seating depth on your bullet. And then so there are more nodes within that time. And what Ashley's talking about when we're doing reloading, and this is why some guys like to use tuners, they'll put weights on their barrel, they'll put those little donuts, they'll do all sorts of things in order to either dampen.
Yeah. Okay, on the outside of the barrel.
Yeah.
Okay, now that. So Like I remember old guns, like they were going really like I have a 6.5 300 Weatherby my dad gave me. It's got a really thin barrel.
Yeah.
Now, Sluckus, remember when we were out on that bear hunt, you're shooting across the canyon there, hitting that little white spot on that rock. What gun were you
Oh,
using
me.
there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Me. That was 300 PRC. That was the Christian Arms Ridgeline Titanium. So it was real light package. But yeah, that gun could shoot.
Yeah. So that's the same gun, that's the same make that you had the other day, hey Dirk? Is that the same?
Different make. So like
Oh,
that
okay. I
one.
thought that was a Christian Arms too.
Oh, my other one is my
Oh, okay.
so my tan rifle has a Christensen Arms gunsmith barrel blank.
Oh.
So the barrel is a 27-inch 30 cal barrel. It's a patterned carbon fiber. The proof research is a randomized carbon. And that one, that's like my like whoever has that gun, they're killing. Like that thing
So
is a killer.
so that 6.5 300 I have, that barrel heats up all the time. Like you could only shoot a couple rounds through it, and then you got to wait half an hour for that barrel to cool down. It's crazy.
I was gonna
Yeah.
Is that
ask
because
if,
does that sorry, Pete?
no, I was gonna ask, does that have to go back to how big the surface area is?
Yeah,
on
overboard.
Yeah,
on
because
the
that
board?
barrel on that gun is freaking super thin.
Yeah, so that you would have like a number.
Why would they make it like why did Adam manufacture what's the point of having it thin?
Light. It's just light. That's why
Oh.
it'd be light, less
But
material cost.
that gun must have a lot of whip in it because it's extremely long too.
Yeah, potentially, right? Like, so say like if you had a real thick or structured, like some of them are getting into structured barrels. They have like inlets and lamination for added surface area rigidity and toning down vibration. That's in the real big bore stuff, like the
I'll
King of
grab
2
it so the
Mile.
people watching can see it.
Another question for you. I'm not sure if it's for cooling purposes or if it's just for weight. What's the purpose of fluting your barrel?
It's a compromise. So there it is for cooling. It doesn't make it more rigid. The physics it doesn't line up with that. No, it's different with structured barrels, like where there's laminations, there's inletting, that's cooling and more for toning down vibration. But if we're just talking standard fluting, that's just to decrease the weight overall and with a little bit of additional cooling because you have additional surface area, right? But
Yeah,
it
like
doesn't make it more rigid.
see this thing? It's tiny. Like see the size of the barrel?
Yeah.
Is that barrel fluted too? We just talked
Yeah,
about
it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It has a little suppressor or muzzle thing with the muzzle brake. You screw on the end of that.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really, yeah. This thing is heavy as hell.
Yeah.
I always found heavier guns were easier to shoot, older to, obviously more weight to hold up, but it always felt like crosshairs would settle down and stay settled.
Yeah.
Whenever I shot them versus like those super light ones they have, like I'd be overcompensating all the time, like, oh, too high, too low.
Yeah.
If you're shooting, but anytime I picked up a heavier rifle, they just, I don't know, they just settled right in. And
my dad, like the theory my dad said, like the old timer was, well, not just him, but my uncle's is like the heavier the gun, the less kick. And that was really the only purpose of the heavier gun.
Well, it depends. I mean, like now we're getting really into it. We're getting into it. So there's two types of rifles.
Okay.
Right?
Can we go back? Just like rewind.
Yeah, let's rewind.
Derek,
Let's go back to the cleaning and then we'll get back right into
I'm
this.
still looking for a number for how often to clean a gun.
The reason why we're going into this tangent is because this part, the cleaning, it depends on the barrel. Carbons typically I have found that they will foul quicker but that's mostly having to do with guys are shooting them at too high of a rate. Like typically I would limit at like when I'm going in the range and I'm shooting a carbon, I'm looking for just warm. I'm not frying that barrel because you'll have it insulated a little bit where you don't feel the full heat and you don't see as much of the heat waves coming off your gun too. You just got to take it easy with
What
those
happens if you
guns.
just keep shooting?
So what you'll end up having is you'll have a shit ton of copper and carbon buildup, but mostly copper because you'll heat up that barrel to the point that you'll start ripping some of the jacket off. Like if you went real crazy with it. So essentially what I mean by taking it easy, I mean like we're shooting groups, we're taking our time. We're not going boom, boom, boom. We're like boom,
That's the
shoot.
fun shit though.
And I know, but it really is
What a dick.
thermally eroding your barrel at a significantly higher rate. If you take it easy, your barrels can last like 1,500, 2,000 rounds. If
Okay,
you
so
like,
okay,
granted with like a 300 win, if you
okay.
hammered on it 1,000 rounds, 1,200,
you're
you're done. You're done.
What happens if I just had this gun and I shoot like as you shoot 3 and it gets hot and you got to put it down? What happens if I just kept shooting it? What would happen to the barrel?
Just get hotter and hotter and hotter.
It wouldn't bend or like.
No, it would probably bend, but it wouldn't like bend.
Will it go
like,
back to that shape?
Potentially. It depends on how far you took it. If you took it till it's red hot, we just lost Ashley.
Yeah, that's already probably. Who knows what he's doing? Anyway,
essentially, what ends up happening is like I was talking about before. Factory barrels tend to have built up grain stress in the barrel. So then you'll like shoot 4 or 5, and then you'll see it start the point of impact shift so those will have like 2 zeros. You'd have your cold clean bore, your cold foul bore, and then your hot fouled, and you're running in your hot range. So your hot, you might impact higher to the right or
okay.
left and right because
will it wreck your barrel?
It can. It
can
wreck
your barrel.
It can if you went crazy. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Gotcha. But like, so I've shot a gun before where I was shooting and it got hot and I didn't really pay attention to it, and like my bullets started going all
That's
wonky.
the stress. That's the stress. That's the stress of the grain structure, like I was talking about changing.
So now so talking about that whip, Derek. Is that whip now? It's just doing now because it's hot and it's more flaccid. It's whipping everywhere.
It'd be the difference of like it's perfectly straight from what your zero was, but now it's got a build up of stress on the grain of the steel on this side because of how they cut it and they didn't de-stress the barrel. So as it heats up, that's going to change that bend. It's just going to slightly pitch you off of your axis of where you cold clean or cold foul board were. So that's all something that you need to keep track of, right? So say if you're going to run and that's what I'm saying, like the clean rate of cleaning depends on what you're doing. So you need to make sure
that you over clean.
Yeah, you can definitely over clean.
Did I ask you that already?
Yeah. Well, no, but you can over clean. But essentially, the over cleaning is just you're increasing the likelihood of damaging the crown. So that's at the very end of the barrel. Every time you clean, you have to be hyper aware of that crown. That's a critical point of accuracy on that barrel. And that's the last thing that touches the projectile as it's leaving the barrel. So if you damage that in any way, you hit that target crown. Essentially, it's like the rifling comes up to that junction point at the end of the muzzle, and it hits a 45 that they cut in with their cutter. And if you damage that transition line in any way, either by running your rod like a madman or doing something really reckless,
where the barrel goes into what do you call that
break,
part?
like at the end of the muzzle. Yeah,
that end.
Yeah, that's a crown. Yeah,
that's the business.
Okay? So we got the barrel.
Yep.
What is this? So it screws
the
into
action. So it screws in. You got your action.
This is all the action.
Yep.
Okay, so the action's not that like the action's where the bolt slides in and out.
Yeah, and then you have your
so now you're threading
screws that's anchored to the stock, and then that's essentially the pivoting point, right? And then you have your barrel. So at the end of the barrel, or right at the end where it screws in, that's the shank, and then you get to the very tip of the barrel, that's your crown, and then your lance is inside the barrel where the case chambers in, and then the projectile hits the lance. That's the starting rifling point. That's where it hits the rifling and turns up the bullet. So
like your accuracy could be a lot of like how well all these things are put together.
Yep.
So how's this gun? Is this like this is a Weatherby? What would you say like for at a scale of 1 to 10? How does Adam do putting his how are Weatherby guns?
Weatherby guns are awesome. Yeah,
Oh,
they're awesome.
okay.
It's
I
just
was hoping you
it's
were going to say they're shit, so it would explain my
well,
shit.
no,
I knew
it's
where you were
it's
going.
they're like when we're talking about factory guns, you get what you pay for, right? Like they can only put so much technology, so much effort, so much tolerance and testing into their guns in order to pump them out at a price where the average guy is gonna buy them. But with the match guns, you're getting a more guaranteed process. Nothing's guaranteed. Like they may have like a half MOA accuracy, but that doesn't mean a quarter inch. That means a half inch. So there is some combinations where you can game it, where you can reload into a node and get some real insane performance. But with factory guns, and like we were talking about barrel construction, if you have a thinner barrel, you may need to clean more often because you're going to have more overheating, more deposits of copper. So
what about bullets?
Bullet,
Is
man,
that does
bullets,
that
yeah, bullets are
so does
another,
that oh no, I know, but like is there better quality bullets? Like would that
yeah.
change the consistency of how often you're cleaning your gun?
Uh, yeah, again, it depends on
This is
coating.
like the longest fucking like
Cleaning ever.
like
Yeah.
all I want to know is
Yeah, so it's funny that
I'm
he
gonna
asked
go
that
shoot my
because
bow.
again, typically I've noticed like monolithic core barrel bullets tend to foul barrels
more
quite a bit more. And
because the
that'd be
crap they're
like
leaving behind. I get it.
yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
like Barnes. Well, it's not just the crap, it's because it internally stretches slightly. And then I've noticed that
Oh, the bullet
because
stretches?
yeah, a
Okay,
little bit. Yeah,
whoa, hold on a
a
second
little
here.
bit.
Okay, let's go back even a little bit farther here. Did you say monolithic bullet?
Yeah.
The fuck is that?
So that'd be like a Barnes bullet that's all
Okay.
one metal. And if they're like depending on the metallurgy of the bullets, I like to stick to just copper. Just give me something like a Burger, a Hornady,
So
ELD,
are you
X.
talking like with the little like nylon tips at the end? Is that
No, no, no. So those are ballistic tips that facilitates expansion as well as with the new Hornady bullets that has some um, meat plaid. I think it's temperature protection now from what the AMAXs were. So the AMAXs they used to melt, and then that would cause degradation of your bullet coefficient, your drag coefficient. So now they have that clear plastic red looking tip, and it still facilitates proper expansion when hitting a target for terminal performance, but it does significantly shield the bullet from degradation of your BC because it would you think about it, you're going wickedly fast, right? So then you're melting that tip off, and then that's where you'd see that inconsistency shot to shot, and then the BC, the drag coefficient would be affected by that. But so like,
oh that tip melts off?
yeah, yeah, on
Like in
those,
flight?
yeah, yeah, on the old bullets, not the new ones. The new ones
Oh.
they fixed that problem. They developed Doppler radar in order to detect that, and because of that, they now know about that. So I stick to straight copper bullets because I know the solvents can clean them. That's why I do that. I don't get to crazy coatings or anything like that. Pick a bullet that's copper. I like that because now the solvents I can use like a wipeout. And again, that's what we're talking about. So I'm going to circle back so that we get this out there and we can move on. But so depending on how you're shooting, if you take it easy with your gun, I notice that after I've properly broken in my barrel and you listen to the barrel. So what that means is I'll shoot a group of like a dot, a dot, a dot, a dot, a dot when I go to the range. I'm always tracking my cold, clean bore shot. I'll always like put in the top left-hand side. I'll shoot one. That's my cold, clean bore. And I'll put that target on a piece of cardboard so I can take it off and I bring it to and from with me a couple of sessions to the range so that I'm tracking my point of impact. And then I'll shoot and then I'll shoot a group like 3. Now let it
Okay,
cool down.
so sorry, Derek. When you So your cold bore shot, you just shoot it once.
Cold clean bore, I'll shoot it once because I want to track
cold clean bore or cold bore.
Cold clean bore, I always track that one. That's like after you cleaned your gun, you put it in your safe. It's just sitting in there, and then you bring it out and you make a shot. I always want to know what that is because, sometimes you're gonna have to track that. Some guns, it's dramatic. Some guns, it's like an inch and a half high.
Does that have any like how you clean your gun? Because like obviously, if you seen me how I clean my guns, you're gonna be like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? What are you doing?" Like
That
just
garden
like
hose out of there.
Yeah. So, does that affect how you clean? Like how you clean if you're cleaning it like how you properly should, which I don't do. Is that going to affect that shot? And is it going to affect all your shots after that?
Yeah, so it depends on if you're bringing it straight down to the bearing surface or if you're partially cleaning, right? And there's no way to really know unless you got a bore scope in there, which fortunately I do have a bore scope. I can check
what's
that.
a bore scope?
Just an endoscopic, basically articulated lens where you can go in there, you can adjust the end, but you can have a 45. You just stick it down your bore, and mostly for like the lands, eh? Or if you're seeing erosion, you'll be able to spot that where, so say like, oh my God, we're getting into it again here. There's another thing.
Do you do all this? So like are you following what this guy's talking about? Completely,
100%, 100%. Yeah, this is the money. This is good stuff. See, the difference is you've had 5 years or however long focus hunting's been on the air to nerd out on your bow, and we're putting the rifle thing all in one episode. So it's like a huge dump here.
Well, I feel like
and it's really good information. I can tell you this right now. There'd be a lot of people listening to this that if they are rifle shooters and if they are paying attention to precision shooting, they're going to be loving every word Derek's saying.
Oh yeah,
really,
Derek's
real.
The man when it comes to this stuff. So that's one thing I'm interested.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like the long range shooting that's what fascinates me because it's a discipline. It's the same with like archery and everything else. Like there's an extreme discipline that goes into, number one, understanding how all this shit works, because understanding your equipment and using it properly makes all the difference in the world. Like you could if you don't understand, it's like shooting your bow. If you don't understand how it goes together, you're really not going to be as good as you could be. You have to understand how it all goes together. Because there's like a lot of stuff, like even like when you get into like bearings of axles and cams and stuff like that, you get into that's going to affect your shot, right? And like if there's so many components to it, but I mean, I feel like there's a little bit more on, well, there is more on the rifle side because there's just a lot more moving parts, it seems like, than there is on a bow.
There's a lot of equipment requirements, right? There's certain standards that you have to adhere to just because we're dealing with machining, right? Machining, projectile choices, powders.
Well, then you're dealing
grasses.
with like extreme speed, and extreme heat, and those are two components that once you start adding one, it's gonna arrow is traveling relatively slow when you think about it compared to like a bullet.
Yeah,
and so there's a lot that can happen to that bullet and we're talking like a long way. Like that, you guys are shooting a long way. Like when you were shooting across the canyon, that was a long way. I was like, you're going to hit that fucking thing over there? Like I couldn't even barely see it. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to hit it. And you hit it. And it's like, it blew me away. I was like, fuck, that's a long way. And then Derek was talking about shooting was 1,700 meters or something like that.
Yeah. So like the farthest I've shot, and that's just because of limitations, is about 2,000, and then 1,700, 1,750 with my 300 wind. Yeah.
That's a long fucking way, man. That's 2 kilometers.
Yeah, I haven't quite stretched out that far. I think I've been working with Murray at Clark Precision down here in the Lower Mainland, and we're going to start stretching out to those limits. I've swapped over to Zeiss scopes, and I was coming off the Swaro system, and just the way their turret design is, it doesn't have the adjustability that's required. Like I've shot everything from Night Force to the top end Vortex offerings for long range, and I've always been a big MOA dial up guy, and I just basically nosedived when I got into this world. Glass perfect, the mechanics of the scope, yeah, they're reliable. It tracks reliably, but with the 7 PRC, I could the max range I could dial for was like 640. So I was pretty frustrated with that bottleneck. Not that I want to shoot animals at that distance, but I like to train out to 1,000 yards on steel so that if I do have to take, quite often if we're above tree line, that it's not uncommon to have to make a 400-yard poke, and I want that to feel, like it's an everyday occurrence. I'd like to get closer. I have a couple drivers. Ethically, I want to be as close as possible when I'm hunting, but B, I also want to capture the best film I can capture, which equals getting a little closer as well. But as far as training and knowing my gear, yeah, I like to stretch out. So I've shot out to 1,100 yards successfully, including with that very same Weatherby you were waving around there earlier. I've shot
6.5 300.
Well, mine was a 300 Winchester Magnum, but it was that same First Light camo job on that Weatherby, and I shot that gun out to 900 yards successfully after reloading in that. It is a pencil barrel and heated up, and getting into sort of like the fluted barrels is kind of like the graduation of the industry into carbon barrels, because they took the fluting as far as they could take it, basically, to get that same result, shed some weight, and still have a bigger diameter barrel. And then that graduated into the carbon fiber, which is now, it's really making a heavy footprint in the market. So
I think when you're shooting out to those long distances, though, it's just practicing your craft and like wanting to push your limits of what you can do. It's the same for like when we shoot our bows, 150, 200 yards.
exactly.
It's just, you just want to see how well you can do. It's not that you're ever actually going to shoot an animal at 150 yards with a bow. It's just knowing that, like, it's just for knowing that you could, right? And it's just like, how well have I honed my craft? How well have I put all my practice to use? Like, just, you want to test your skills, and like the only way you test it is just by pushing the envelope further and further and further, right? It's like with anything, you always want to do a little bit more, a little bit more.
I think it's important differentiator though, to when we're talking about this in the hunting community, to talk about the difference of what we do for practice and what we're actually going to do ethically for hunting. Because, I think even in my younger years when, long range hunting sort of hit the scene, I was like, oh, great. I'm going to go and get, an MOA rifle, and I'm going to shoot elk at 1,000 yards. Well, when you really get into it, that's just not a real good idea. It can be done, no question, but you need absolutely perfect conditions. Like if
elk
you
are
do
tough too, man. Like, fuck, that's a long way. So
like the gun's definitely got the jam. It's got the foot pounds to do it. Like it's still delivering a healthy dose of power. The issue becomes once you've got everything else figured out, it really comes into, even at a 5-mile-an-hour cross breeze, how far that moves your point of impact, and your ability to judge that over that distance it's really difficult. Like really difficult.
And when you're talking about taking a life, it's a lot different than shooting.
Well, that's what I mean. Shooting steels, that's fun. It's fun to miss and then learn what the dial is over. And oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I thought it was only 5-mile-an-hour wind here. Why am I still hitting, 5 feet to the right of a
Mhm.
2 foot by 2 foot steel plate. So you're shooting an elk in the hip. You know what I mean? Like that's just not a good idea.
What's the
But it's
furthest you've shot an animal?
the furthest I've shot an animal is 600 and 610. It was a bear on Vancouver Island. It was a good one shot clean kill. But I really, really think even that is you know, you got to train hard. You got to know your gear. You know, you should have an understanding to Derek's level of long range shooting before you'd attempt even a 600-yard shot
I don't.
on an animal.
I don't like. I know you like. You guys both know a lot, but like to know as much as Derek does about long range shooting is like, I don't know. You could do that for how long have you been playing around with this stuff, Derek?
Uh, at this level, like getting
You're
really into it,
yeah.
probably 11, 12 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought you were
12
gonna.
years.
Thing about Derek is he's really like he's a super smart guy. So I thought he was gonna say like 1 year, and he just
No,
already knows
no,
all this shit.
no. Like lots
Well, I
of,
just started messing around with it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I just
No,
picked it up.
no, because there is like it can be extremely expensive. So there is like
Oh,
you can
fuck
start
yeah.
out super simple and it takes some serious time, energy, dollars investing into reloading components and tools and equipment. Like on my reloading bench here, I got like dial indicators and micrometers and stuff just for cases here and two scales. You know, the scales especially it can take quite a bit of time to build up some of your stuff and your knowledge base. But you know, exactly what Ashley's talking about with distances. So like we're over an hour now and we haven't even talked about how many rounds for cleaning. So like it is very complicated. Basically though, like what we're talking about is we're trying to control either through our equipment choices, our case choices, our scope optics choices. We're just trying to control all the non-controllable things, and then we hyper control all the things we can control. So once you have a rifle, that's what the rifle is, right? Like that's the barrel is that concentric, it's going to work that well. That is what it is. Once you've chambered, you've done everything, right? So, and then after that, it changes to our maintenance protocols, how we treat our rifles, how consistent we can be with that, and then it goes into reloading. But so back to I'm just gonna
throw us a number.
Go back. I'm gonna throw a number. So you shoot your cold bore, you shoot 3-shot groups, you shoot those groups without overheating until you notice a significant reduction in accuracy.
How do you know if you're overheating?
You'll
Like,
feel it. You'll feel it. It'll feel hot to the touch.
Like, are we talking, well, like some people's, like if you have like hands like Pete that are just like really soft and like,
Yeah,
you know,
that's what these are here.
They could touch anything and they're like, oh, that's hot. He's got no calluses built
hot
up
to the
on
touch. Hot to the
him.
touch.
His temperature is going to be a lot different than my hands, which, you know, are man hands and they deal with brick and concrete and mortar all day.
Problem with yours is you wouldn't even get yours around the barrel. They just, you trying to max out, they just barely touch the top of it.
Okay.
You'll see. So back to what I was saying before we get into any more gouging. At the start of your barrel, there's that shank, right? So a lot of the heat is going to occur and accumulate there. So
the start down
right
by
there.
the action.
Yeah, right near there. You're going to see a lot of heat in there,
so
right?
That's the start. So this is the start. So the start is where the threads are, where it threads.
Yeah, right around. Yeah, so that's
how long are those threads? Like how easy is this to unthread from this gun?
It wouldn't be. You'd need an action vice.
And that kind of depends on the brand too, correct?
Yeah,
I think I've heard.
Yeah,
some barrels.
Do those get torqued? Obviously, I imagine they get.
They'll get torqued.
Are they like?
Yep. With a torque wrench.
Crazy.
Depends on the specifications of like the material too. So like if titanium would be different than steel, so you definitely want to check that with your manufacturer.
I feel like for all this long range stuff, what we need to do is like get Derek to like come up with like a spreadsheet, and then like we'll have to like just work through all these things over like a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I feel like even for right now, I feel like I'm just asking you all these dummy questions and we're getting pulled all over the map. I don't know if
It's
it
all
feels
right.
like
It's all
I
right.
don't
It's
know if
just
that feels
once
like
you get
that for
into it
anybody
like
else.
that, that's how it is, right? You and then as soon as you unravel all these layers of complexity, you start realizing, oh, really, I'm not really controlling that many things. That's the average guy usually is like, oh, yeah, I guess I haven't really standardized my cleaning procedure. Oh, yeah, I guess I'm taking my rifle out in a different state every time I go to the range.
Yeah. Well, and
Hey,
like
like
this,
what's happening at the higher end of the round count?
I think what I'd
Right?
like to go over with you guys over time, like on personal calls with both of you, is more before I start working on the gun, because I'm sorry, you could hand me one of your guns and I'm not going to be able to shoot it the same way that you shoot it. And I think I'd like to talk to you guys about what I can do breathing wise, like different techniques.
you're just
and
pulling the
stuff like
bigger
that.
trigger, Pete. How hard is it?
Oh, no.
Well, fuck, when you got guns this big, I don't know.
Okay. It's
But you know what I mean? I would
fundamentals
honestly
of marksmanship. Yep.
and that's where I would personally like to start. I mean, I still try to go as much as I can with archery, where I am venturing into this year in September. If I can't pull it off in archery season, there are a lot of longer shots. There's a lot of slides and stuff like that. And I'm not talking a lot of obstructions. It's literally like I got to get from point A to point B. I can see you clear as day, but there's a distance there. I still wouldn't want to shoot over 500 yards. And I'm talking with lots of practice and stuff. I would still want
Dude, what did you
400
shoot
and
that
under.
whitetail at? How much far was that?
Which shot?
He knew what I was getting to, didn't he?
Yeah. But I have shot in the past, like before I got heavy into the archery. I got a buddy of mine he's like you guys, like you start talking to him and it's like speaking another language. And we did lots of practicing at 400 or 500 yards, and the grouping was really well. But I've forgotten more than what he's taught me in that time period because of just my focus.
I've forgotten everything Derek's already said.
Yeah. But just knowing the areas that we're going into. I mean, we got some massive cut blocks up in those areas. We've got, slides that are across creeks and stuff like that. For you guys would be sitting there like, this is gravy. This is cake. Like, that's an easy shot per se, if you can shoot those distances. So it's a matter of, I'll cross the freaking creek if I have to, just to get that shot off. I'm not going to take a long shot. Just
those shots, Pete, they can be more tricky than you'd think. Like, just like if you're shooting valley to valley, those shots, it's more about like practicing shooting position and then tracking that positional shooting on paper. That's one thing that like a loose tripod can make you kick to the left.
Oh yeah.
Or like, depending on how you're gonna, and that goes into a whole nother thing as far as like, what bipods we're using. If you're using that bipod, I would definitely test out what you're using in the field to see if it has some sort of weird. I had a Chris Arms gun that we were doing some reloads for, and they wanted to use this really long Harris bipod. And for whatever reason, it just was bottomed out, and they didn't fully realize that there was a little bit of slop. And because of that, it was shooting 5-inch groups.
Oh, wow.
So does, like, when you're shooting across, so Stuckless, remember you shot across that valley?
Yeah.
Is that have any different influence on that bullet than if you're shooting over land? Because now you're dealing with a lot of distance between where the bullet is flying and the bottom of the ground. Like, I'm just wondering, like, does that have any?
Very little, but in extreme long range situations, if you've got thermals that are really heavily running, yeah, maybe a minor difference for sure. I mean, whatever direction the air is moving, it is applying that force to your bullet.
Okay.
Now,
but it doesn't
what makes a big difference in that shot particularly, that although it was across a valley, it was still about a 15-degree down angle at that. And we were sitting, I forget what it was, 650 yards, whatever it ended up being there. That angle mattered more than the valley, not having earth below you, having earth way below you wasn't really the factor. But that even that 15-degree angle, once like pretty much anything inside of 500 yards, a lot of the conditions, unless they're really bad, super strong wind, sure, that's going to matter a lot. But you really, everything we talked about here today really starts to become doubly important, from 500 to 1,000 yards. That's when, all of these little nitpick details, if they are not considered and managed, you're just not going to get to stretch out like that. And to Pete's point, even with the best equipment, without training and practicing and putting, like, if we're talking about reliably shooting steel at 1,000 yards, you have to shoot a lot, and you have to shoot on a regular schedule. I mean, it's similar to your bow. How quickly do you get out of practice?
One day.
Yeah, well, sure, you're tuned to where you're shooting every day. You can feel the difference. Well, it's the same once you're pushing the limits of anything. If you're not doing it, like controlling your personal mechanics, your breathing, your grip, then I went through I've had quite a bit of success this year in my training with Murray. And speaking about doing the actual training in the field, I'm going out for a field training test because, shooting off a bench is one thing, but, shooting off your backpack, using your tripod as a rear rest, or like when you're going valley to valley, it's hard to get the shot angle. I think if you're shooting cross canyon, the slopes like this, you're looking for a rest where you can get behind and support your the rear of your rifles. Almost, it's in my mind more important.
I remember when you
even...
were shooting across, your feet were way higher than your head, because I was making a comment. I was like, "You're gonna roll down that fucking hill. I'm not pulling you up out of there."
Well, I purposely did that. Like, I look for that body position, right? Like, a lot of people, when they'd look at that, they'd say, "Oh, well, the edge of the road or the edge of this old little landing area is nice and flat. I want to set up there." No, I purposely creeped out on there because, like I said, I was shooting downhill at 15 degrees. I can't remember. And then my rangefinder compensated for that angle and gave me a true dial up in MOA. But I purposely creep my body out on the same angle as my gun so I can get right behind it, as opposed to leaving the gun up on that nice flat grassy landing area and then having to jack the back of the gun up, making it less stable off there. So I basically did that so I could keep the gun profile, so it was very easy to have a rear rest.
You wanted the same, you wanted to be your body the same angle as the barrel of the gun. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a question for you guys. So I was on a goat hunt. I had a goat draw in the Kootenays, and it was a goat, and I shot a goat. It was 400 yards with this exact gun. This was a long time ago. And then we seen some elk, and I was shooting at an elk. And the first shot I hit it, and I hit it really high, it like spined it. And I went to do another couple shots, and we were on quite the steep angle, like crazy steep. And the bullets were like literally shooting way over top of his. I couldn't get a fix on. I ended up having to go down to where he was and shoot him again, because I couldn't hit him again the second time. I couldn't hit him again because my bullets kept going way over top of him.
Yeah, like,
and I was putting my crosshairs, like, the second time I shot, I was like, "Oh fuck, I just pulled a Pete. I just missed." And then the third time, like, I realized that they were just going way over top of him. Is that because of the angle?
Yeah,
or toe support, or stock toe support. You'll see that a lot with people where they don't have consistent cheek pressure, and then what happens is, especially with lighter guns, especially if you're in an awkward position, that gun will kick down hard, and you'll see high impacts. Obviously, that's exaggerated, right?
Yeah, I was definitely like in a weird position.
Yeah,
I don't remember. I never thought about that, but that would be considered like another anchor, right? If your anchor's off a little bit when you shoot your bow.
Yeah,
and make a huge difference downrange.
It depends again on too, like we were talking about cleaning, the state of your bore, that depends a lot. So like say if you sight in, and this is why I was saying, like, you shoot your cold bore, you track that, you shoot a group of 3 without overheating, you shoot another group of 3 without overheating, you shoot all those groups 3, take that gun, put it in the safe, come out a second time and shoot a group of 3, group of 3, group of 3, like a range, like shooting it 100 yards, tracking it all with the same target on a piece of cardboard. Your cold bore shoot on the left. Then then you have your cold clean bore in the top left corner. Then below it you have your fouled cold bore shot. You shoot your groups of 3 and you see what that round count is before accuracy drops off. You track that. The first time you go about all this, you track that. This is probably after your load testing, etc. So, and once you've done that, you will get a clear, optimal and operating round count range. Every barrel's different. My Chris Arms is super accurate right out of the box. Like he'll shoot cold clean bore. That barrel is just like bang on. It's within the group. So it doesn't matter when I use that thing. That first shot is a little bit faster though. It's about 10 feet faster. So I've chronographed that too. So chronographing my shots. I know everything that's going on. I know though that so before I go out for a hunt, I know my operating range is 3 to 20 is the highest accuracy out of that barrel. If it's in a hotter environment, that'll be at 20 on the dot. If I'm in a colder environment where it's cooler, I'm not overheating the barrel. So like say if you're doing this test in 32 degrees, you're going to have more fouling quicker because your barrel isn't going to cool down as fast. You're going to see that kind of accumulation of higher heat as you go to the end of your last shooting string. And if you track that, you really quickly are going to know, okay, I have an operating range of like 3 to 30 or 3 to 35 where I don't have to clean, but if I don't clean at that last point, it goes off the charts. My accuracy goes out of whack. It's
35
too dirty.
rounds?
Yeah, it could be 35 with that carbon, that big, the dark gun. It's like 200. I can do 0 to 200 rounds before I have to clean that barrel. But again, like
why do they say that, like some people say you shouldn't clean 22s?
Eventually you should clean them.
Yeah. I know like the guys at Plinker and stuff, they're like these guns, some of the guns, once you get them mucked up a little bit, you get better.
Well, they're saying that too, because like as you thermally, and this is what we're talking about, thermally erode your barrel. So what this is called in big bores, it's a lot more pronounced than with like 22s and stuff, right?
Oh,
so this essentially what you're controlling is called your copper fouling equilibrium. So basically that is you have those first couple shots, this huge increase in copper on the bearing surface of the rifling, like the grooves and all your rifling, that bearing surface is getting a little coat of copper. Essentially, at the start, it's this huge increase, and then it's really stable. And it's gradually, it's increasing, but because you're firing around down after it, it's just smaller because that bullet contains a lot of the pressure in the room inside that bore. So then it kind of wipes it off at the same time. But eventually you'll have it kind of accumulating up. Some barrels are worse than others, and you'll have it slowly come up, and then you'll see this big spike of pressure because now there's so much copper in there. It's actually kind of inhibiting accuracy and consistency because it's starting to cause like an inconsistent bearing surface inside the bore. And so but that's depending on a lot of things. It's depending on what point is the lifespan of the rifle. Some of like the big 338 like tactical stuff that I've shot, like some are in like 3,000 round range, 4,000 rounds, and like you have to shoot them fouled. You have thermally eroded that first part of the rifling so badly, you need that smoothed out to the point that like you need a lot of copper buildup in there in order to build up that bore so that it's a tighter. And that's when I talk about like barrel burnout. That means a lot for different people. Like if you have a 1/4 minute gun and then now it's a 1/2 minute, well, it's probably still good, but it's just whether or not the pressure and the feet per second is still consistent enough to track. So that's like, so when we're cleaning, we're going through our cleaning procedures, we're just keeping track of data. We know what's going on. That's essentially, with some of these sporter barrels, it could be 10 rounds, it could be 15 rounds, and then it goes to accuracy, goes to shit. With one of my cousin's guns, he had a Mesa, Chris Arms Mesa, 5 shots, and it was like big group, and then 5 shots, and it's accurate out to 30 rounds. And then his accuracy opens up again. And then because it's too foul to be consistent. And then say, like, my dad's got a Winchester Model 70. That gun is super accurate up until 15 to 20 rounds. And then it has this insane recoil impulse where it becomes very hard recoiling. So obviously there's some friction dynamic changing inside the bore, because again, the barrel construction isn't 416R barrel steel. It's grabbing that, and two, it's more susceptible to overheating as well and carbon buildup.
15 rounds. That's
kind
of annoying. So like, how many rounds? So basically, every time you take it to the range, you got to clean it after.
To a degree, but that means, so like, say if I'm in a hunting environment, and then we're talking real big accuracy, right? Like we're like really good groups, like that Winchester, like I got that thing shooting for my dad at 300 yards, just shooting under an inch. So like that, like we're talking serious accuracy that's trackable. And so definitely, like Pete's talking about, your fundamentals of marksmanship definitely have to be they have to be solid. You can't be having any weird consistencies. So that's why we shoot the 3-packs, because if you start getting to 5s, that's more of a judgment and determining of like your accuracy, your fundamentals of marksmanship. 3 shots, if you have like good predictable 3-shot, and then you throw one, okay, well, right, 3-shot, it's good. If you do 5, that's a lot. That has a lot to do with the shooter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say doing packs of 3s, because then you're not gonna. For me, it's also having to do with, I'm shooting primarily carbon barrels, so I don't want to be pushing the temperatures, right? So, but what you'll see is, as long as you don't push the temperatures, you'll have a good operating range. And like I was saying before, that means that when I go out hunting, I know that, okay, I go to the range, I clean my bore, I clean my barrel real good. Okay, I clean my chamber. Chamber really matters too, making sure there isn't a bunch of slop and shit in there, because that'll reduce the amount of space for your cartridge, and that'll cause weird friction points. If you have cleaner in there, not good. So, and then I shoot. Okay, I know that I take my gun to the range. I put 3 shots down range. My gun is now good to go. I tape off the barrel with electrical tape. I'm good to go. Now I know, okay, the bore is completely into its accuracy section. It's workable, usable operating range of I got 20 rounds where I can hunt with. And as long as you don't push the gun into extreme high humidity or high moisture, you're good. To just leave it as is.
What do you mean push the gun into high?
So like, say if I'm in a real like humid climate, like on a coastal, and it's very like corrosive environment, you're probably gonna want to clean every time, because
where Ashley is, he lives on the coast, all the salt water. You must have to clean your gun quite a bit.
Just more.
Just more if I'm, but like I live here, but I actually do most of my hunting in the interior, you know what I mean? And up north.
But just for shooting though. Well, does that affect storage as well?
Well, yeah, sure. If you're in a humid environment, for sure. I mean, I have a humidity controller in my safe there behind me and what have you, but still it's yeah, I mean,
what is that thing? What is the humidity controller? Like a little?
It's just a little electric unit there that burns the moisture out of the air. But
no wonder I couldn't hit fucking anything with a rifle.
But definitely, humidity. Nice. If you're doing a lot of hunting in the rain and stuff, for sure. Like will clean and baby my rifle a little more than that. I'm not much of a bore cleaning guy. And I think what it's come down to in this whole conversation is just like everything, if you want to do it well, there's not a passive way to do it. There's not a recipe book. Okay, clean your gun every 30 rounds, whatever gun you have on the planet.
That's what I was hoping for,
No,
but
there's
apparently
not,
not.
no, nothing's passive like that. It's just like
Or
you're
you guys are
training
just
with your.
gonna. The whole reason I wanted to talk about it was you guys are just gonna tell me how to shoot better. Not that I even shoot a rifle anymore, but never know with my eye. That's one thing like I was kind of scared about. And I was talking to Pete. I was like, because I had my eye wasn't getting any better. Pete's like every couple of days, like, your eye get any better? I'm like, no. He's like, and I was like, no. And it went for the longest time where it was like I was looking underwater for like 3 weeks, and I was like, fuck, man, maybe what if I can't shoot a bow anymore, or that, or go to left hand? But I feel like that would be almost impossible now to switch to shooting a bow left-handed. My brother had to do it because he lost he lost a finger, but that was only he shot a gun and he switched this way. But man, it's like, yeah, that's what I was saying. I think. Okay, yeah, go. You go.
I just want to finish this so that the listeners get it. There also is, so like if you're running your gun steady, like a comp gun or something like that, that's different too, right? So like if you're running your gun steady, you're on a training routine, that's different than long term. Long-term storage, if you run your round count out to 200 rounds and then you put your gun in the safe, what I have found in my climate, and this is why I say there's differences between moisture, like if I'm hunting in the snow and I know that there's a high likelihood I got quite a bit of snow or anything in that bore, I'm going to clean it.
What about dust? Sorry, I said I was going to shut up, but I lied. What about like, does it really dusty areas?
Not as much. Not as much, but yeah, it definitely would affect things. Yeah, you'd want to control the amount of dust going into that bore.
But like all the dust, yeah, would that, like getting all like a bunch of dust in there and consistently shooting, would that wear your barrel down a lot more?
Probably,
yeah.
No, not as much. It's not going to be something you'd like notice, but I feel like anything that is not supposed to be in there is probably going to have some negative effect. Yeah.
But okay, because we're talking like so fine, like everything, the detail and margin for error is so fine when you're doing this range that any little thing might affect it.
As long as it's not super coarse, I don't think you're going to notice it, because too, you do have a lot of air in front of the bullet. And that's a different topic. That's muzzle brake pull off territory. That's where you have such powerful rounds and a huge diameter. So like your 50 cal stuff that I've shot in the past, like that is the bore. There's so much air in front of the projectile, it actually will pull your barrel off because it's actually like mitigating recoil in front of the bullet. So that's a different territory, but you got to remember too, like there's a lot of things pushing air out in front of the projectile as it's going down the bore. So it's going to clear out a lot of that shit. But
right,
just like for my type of climate, it's very dry here. So because if I this is something I've noticed, and I'm going to ask you the same thing to you, Ashley, if you've noticed this too, is if I'm putting a lot of rounds down range, so like 200 plus. If I put my gun into longer term storage, like even for a few months, I got to be really conscious of that carbon, because in my climate, that carbon will start to like harden to the point that it's like, initially, if I just cleaned it off or chipped it off, it's fine. Like it'll come off. But if I leave it in and it's so dry and I put it in my safe and it's in a dry environment, it'll actually like harden to the point where it's like concrete. And it is super difficult to get off, especially on the muzzle brake. Do you find the same thing, Ashley?
Yeah, I've definitely had an issue with my Christensen gun in the past with the buildup, and I wasn't cleaning, and and because it was a 300 PRC, it's got that steep shoulder in that, it was driving the carbon, and it was making a buildup right at that interface point to where on the crown. And I was like, wow, this is so yes, I have experienced that. And yeah, it was a bit of an eye opener on that rifle. So we'll see how I do with the Fierce rifles here and managing that.
I think that has to do with a lot with how they time the muzzle brakes too. So if they time it at a certain point in the gill breaks, it'll start to create a turbulent flow in there. And she'll see more, some rifle manufacturers are better and gunsmiths are better at it than others for the depth, how deep they put that first crown point onto the gills. Depending on the gill efficiency, you'll see where it drives carbon into that front face and it starts to really accumulate in the corner. And that, like, so say if they didn't have the depth correct, they didn't go deep enough, like put the muzzle brake deep enough on the actual barrel itself, that first explosion of gas coming out the side will hit a corner on the gill brake and it'll cause a turbulent flow, and then it just drives deposition of the copper into, or the carbon into there.
Yeah, it was slightly. I did experience that too, but specifically, and I had never experienced this before. Was because of the steep angle of the shoulder on the PRCs, and right at the interface, right down towards the lands, like right at the jump point.
Oh yeah, okay.
There was
so
actually a carbon buildup there.
So you're talking in the actual chamber itself.
Yeah, in the chamber.
Oh, in the
sure.
chamber. Yeah.
Just for, and I hadn't experienced that before, and it was the first time I sort of had, an aha moment of whether I should be a little more diligent on the cleaning front, because I hadn't been, and that was the first time where I felt like it sort of bit me, to the point where, I had a case come apart, and I'm not, it had only been reloaded twice, that brass. But I had a case come apart, and we were really, going down the rabbit hole of sort of reverse engineering how this happened.
At
And
the
then
head?
yeah, at the head.
This case head separation.
Yeah, so and then so we bore scoped it and we seen this carbon build up, and one of the theories was, we had so much back pressure, this thing, or that created some sort of problem with the head spacing, and that's why the round separated there. And I'm pretty diligent reloader. I've had good success with it, and yeah, so I'm not sure what went on there, but that was one of the factors that, a more experienced shooter than me said, hey, sometimes with these PRCs we're getting this happening where we're getting carbon built up right in the chamber there, and I definitely did have a very noticeable ridgeline of carbon built up.
Yeah, you'll see that in like the 28 nozzlers, especially too. You'll see like a real carbon dark ring that's right at the lands. Yeah, it's just how the shoulders pushing, and it too. It depends on how much free neck space there is. So if your necks can, like, if they chamber in where they have more neck space, like neck length, you'll see sometimes an accumulation of that because you're not close to that point. So then that carbon's able to drive into that little corner again, and then it'll build up, and then that'll push your datum, like where your case is like crunched into there, and then when it shoots, it has nowhere to go, so then it overpressures, and then the back end. You'll see that in belted magnums as well, where like if there's any type of tension in the front end of the case, it'll blow the brass out, and then if it gets stuck, all that pressure has to go somewhere, so then it kind of reverberates back to the back of the case, and then creates this like little donut ring in the back. And the bright
donut,
yeah. And if you cut it down in half, you'll see, like, even with like, or a paper clip, you can come in there. I come in with a paper clip sometimes, and I'll feel in there,
and you can hook that edge.
Yeah,
for sure. My father-in-law is a gunsmith, and he taught me. I use a dental pick, actually.
Yeah,
which is
I was getting
nice.
so paranoid about one. I had this gun that the datum line was way out in the shoulder, so push it out like 5 thousandths, and it was just blowing the brass out. And I would cut it in half. I cut it in half, put in a vise, cut in half, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's definitely a donut ring. But anyway, back to the cleaning. Basically, you just got to listen to the gun. For if you're shooting continuously, 200 rounds, I'm using Wipeout. I haven't used an abrasive brush in my guns for years now. it's like a foaming agent. I put that shit in there, and then I check the crown. If you just look in the crown, you look with a flashlight. If you see copper streaks, that means you haven't gotten all the copper out. Because typically the highest accumulation of copper deposition is on the crown and in the lands. You can't really see in the lands unless you get a borescope. So I use the crown as my indicator for how much copper deposition. You just do passes, and then anything you go out, if you're running like a jig, I know it's a pain in the ass, but that's why I don't clean as much, is I unscrew it before I pull the rod in. I'm just super paranoid about damaging the crown.
Doing something right.
Yeah.
That's how I do it. And I didn't look at it as, I didn't even think about damaging the crown. I looked at it as, if I pull that back through, anything that brush is pulling backwards is pulling it into my action. Is the way I was just looking at it mechanically. I didn't know if I was doing it right or not, but I was like, well, if I push it out, it's out of the gun.
Yeah, out. Everything must go out. So like any of the gun manufacturers, like Lilia and all those, is like anything when they talk about barrel issues, it's usually because someone is either using a really high abrasive or they're pulling things in. Everything should go out. If it goes out, it's good. It's when you're pulling things back in, like brushes and jigs, where they're constantly, because if you don't have a fully supported jag and rod assembly, and then you're just running it in, what are you going to do? You're going to have higher contact always on the bottom of that barrel. So you're always going to be like dragging your jag across your crown on the bottom, constantly drag. I'm not saying it's going to be super damaging, but if you have that, and that's why I use muzzle brakes on all my guns, so that if something happens traumatic, like I had a gun where I was doing some mountain hunting and my sling broke and my gun went flying down a mountain and it still stayed zeroed, and there was like mud packed in the barrel. It was bad. And the tip of my bore, like, it didn't get damaged because I had a muzzle brake. The scope tracked. It was a Night 4 scope. I shot a group and it was perfectly back to where it needed to be after I got the mud out. But it's just going to show, like, if you don't protect that and you're constantly running it into the ground in your truck, you're not conscious of that crown. If you go and nick it or hit it hard when you're cleaning, you're gonna have issues. You're gonna have something you can't control, and all you'll see is you go and shoot and you're like, oh, it's grouping to the right now. What the hell? Then you move it in, and then you put it back in your safe, and you go back out again. And then boom, you shoot again. You're like, what the hell? It's shooting high now. Like, what's going on? It's just, now that you have that inconsistency, now that bullet isn't fully supported 360 degrees around consistently. And so it's not being released consistently. And then you'll see your impact start jumping around everywhere. There you go. Now we have a better idea of what the cleaning is. Listen to your gun, shoot groups, track them, and then clean appropriately. And then before you go into season, always say, put a couple rounds down range, always confirm your zero. And that's something, when you're training, you should be tracking your point of impact. So like on your dot, shoot a dot, point of impact. Pay attention to that, depending on how many round count you have. And then when you go out and hunt, it should be fouled, slightly fouled. That way you have consistency and you're in your operating zone of rounds.
I had an epiphany there. I don't know, you guys, listeners, they haven't heard my voice in probably 20 minutes, but I just had an epiphany that the conversation is a lot better when I stay out of it. Listening to you and Ashley talk, yeah, that was way better than me.
Well, no, it's good to initiate the conversation, Kevin. You're doing a good job because Ashley and I might
out of it.
Ashley,
I was gonna say the opposite. I noticed it got better, but
yeah, me too. Because it drives conversation.
That's why I don't know if you noticed, but I pushed my mic.
I seen it, and you crossed your arms, and you're like, "Oh,
I better stay out of this fucking conversation and let the guys that know what they're talking about talk.
It's good. It drives conversation. No, it's good. Drives conversation. It asks those questions that maybe we're taking for granted, right? If you're just getting into this, it's a huge thing. Just control what you can. Start writing stuff down. Take a shooting log with you and track things. track things. And then that goes for your process too. Like what Pete was talking about with fundamentals of marksmanship. I'll tell you a good story. One of my work colleagues, he had a new Tika. Okay, we're doing some reloads for him. And just me sitting down with him for 30 minutes, he went from being a 1.5 inch shot to a 1/2 inch shot in like
impressive.
30 minutes.
That's
of
impressive.
just nailing down the fundamentals of marksmanship. So you're addressing the rifle, you're square behind the rifle, your grip, how you're putting your hand so you're not torquing the gun, how your cheek pressure, holding your gun. That's one thing that like exactly what you're talking about, like with super lightweight guns, guys will grip them like death grip them, eh? Because they feel like that's going to help them because, it's light, it's moving around more. But that actually can exacerbate the problem because you'll start shuddering because you're holding it so tight. And that's usually kind of because, too, the gun that's light, it's going to recoil really hard. So guys want to hold it super tight. So then you'd hold the gun by the exact weight to the gun. So if I have like a 10-pound gun, that means that I can hold it up to 10 pounds of tension on my shoulder and loading on the bipod, and it's going to be super steady and consistent. If it's like a 6 or 7-pound gun, I don't want to hold it tighter on my shoulder than what I think 6 or 7 pounds is, because you'll hit a certain point where the gun just is going to aim as good as it's going to aim at 6 pounds of tension. If I increase that tension, I'm going to increase my shuddering. So you're going to start seeing your heart rate. You're going to see any little movement in your body position. You're going to see that crosshair start bouncing hard. If you ease off, you just get a little more consistent behind the gun. Cheek pressure is consistent. I pull back my gun. I drag in the bipod. So I've loaded the gun already. So then that's going to cause it to be tight from the bipod to my shoulder. So I don't have anything moving around. And then how I'm addressing the gun, the trigger. I'm going in the meaty part of my finger. I'm not going to the crank. I'm not going to the tip. I'm going to kind of a lever point where I can hold steady. And this is where the misconception comes. Surprising, like when people talk, oh, the gun should surprise you. If you shoot extreme long range, I can tell you don't know. Oh, maybe they're just saying surprise as something different. Because when my spotter says we're good to go, I have to shoot in that wind window. And he calls me my wind. He's watching the wind. He'll say, spotter ready. Means that my natural exhale, inhale at my first available natural respiratory pause at the bottom, I have to shoot. I have to lay a shot downrange. So, follow. And then when you make that shot, your natural exhale, you shoot, reload, shoot, reload, shoot. That way you get into that kind of that rhythm. And because if you hold your breath, you're going to see tunneling, and all of a sudden your heart rate's going to go up, and then you're going to see tunneling. So just getting into the ebbs and flow of your natural respiratory pause, and you feel your finger, you should do dry firing before you shoot at the range. I really encourage, like, obviously if you're shooting a rim fire, don't do that, but center fires you can, and just get through those motions of, okay, it's back to the fundamentals. WTF, wind, trajectory, fundamentals of marksmanship. The wind, I'm paying attention to wind. I adjust my trajectory.
I always thought WTF stand for something else.
Yeah,
buddy.
But it's right. We know the wind. We're out there hunting or shooting, we're always looking at the wind. We know we have a wind meter. We're looking at those natural things around us, like trees moving. Okay, when does that happen? Direction, terrain features, then trajectory. So that's I range. I do my trajectory adjustment, and then fundamentals of marksmanship. Behind the rifle, level my cant, focus on parallax, bob my head to see if it flexes the line on the reticle. If it's flexing, I gotta tweak my parallax, and then I address the gun, steady pressure, pull back the gun, load in the bipod, address the hand position, and then finger on the trigger, address the trigger, control my breathing, focus on aiming, and then follow through on the shot. And so what you should be able to do with your dry fire is you should be able to come to the right at the point where it's going to break the shot, and you should be able to hold it there with nothing happening without you commanding it. And then you just follow through the little extra. So if you have a real light trigger, that's where like people ask for really, really light triggers, like 12-ounce triggers. I personally don't like that. That's where like it'd be the difference between like, what Pete's encounter with all the target shooting he's doing, like guys that take the target to the extreme, that doesn't help you in a hunting scenario sometimes. That gets into
Are you referring
specialized
to like archery or bow? I mean, sorry, archery or rifle?
so rifle is the same. So you want to make sure that you don't get so far into like target stuff. Like, it's the same thing with the bow I was saying. Like, so like
Yeah.
huge stabilizers and like, so with rifle be like massive bipods, liquid head bipods, like bench rest type stuff. You want to make sure that it's all centered around what you're going to be doing in the areas you're hunting. So you're not like building up a bunch of shit that's going on that's too much to manage. Because if you don't have your gear management under control, and because initially you'll think, oh, I got my wind meter, I have all these tripods, I have all these things going on. You need to condense and simplify.
Yeah, because you're not going to be taking that out hunting with you,
or it's going to take too long. To get a shot on a moving animal. So that's where you have to make sure that you're always thinking, if you're going to use this for hunting, that you're always thinking, okay, so I made that shot at 600 yards. How long did it take for me to set up?
right?
Did it take like a minute? Well, that's too long.
Oh yeah.
So you have to think about expediting those shots.
Yeah.
So that's where when you train,
so do those,
train everything the same.
Yeah. Do you guys have like long range guns that you won't use for hunting?
I don't.
They just fuck around with?
That dark rifle I've shot 2 elk and like 3 deer with it, and it's 11 pounds.
So I don't have any rifles that I don't hunt with, simply because I've never really dove down the rabbit hole of 15-pound target guns and gone that way. I've tried to incorporate as much of the technology into a lighter weight hunting rig. So,
but that's the number one intention, is just hunting.
Yeah.
Hunting for sure. And then I overtrain, shoot further, so I can hunt at reasonable ranges effectively, basically.
And know your limits, right? Like, because then you know what your limits are. Then you know what's ethical, what's reckless, right? And that's the thing, like exactly what Ashley's talking about is, you push the distance, you push the range, but then deep down, if taking that 700-yard shot in this type of gusty wind conditions, where there's some weird topography where you have an updraft or thermals as well, you'll know, okay, like, that's a reckless shot. I should get closer. I should do something different. Or if you've rehearsed and you can't build a shooting position. That's another thing. Then you know damn well how steady you have to be, and you're going to avoid those potential wounding shots or misjudging wind, because okay, I can't nail down the wind. It's like we were talking about. I can't nail down the wind. I'm not making that shot. I'm going to have to wait or move up or do something different.
Yeah, shot position's a huge consideration for sure. Sorry, Kev. And I always thought in the back of my mind, I don't want to train with something that's better than what I'm hunting with. I.e., I don't want the extra advantage in my training and then take out a weapon that doesn't have the same level of accuracy and treat it like it does. So that's why it's just, I use the tools that I'm going to use, and then I never have to question myself, because and the shooting position thing just goes without saying. And like, we're shooting off these benches all the time, shooting out, shooting long distance, shooting out 1,000 yards, shooting 800, having great success. But it is rare to find a setup like that. I love shooting prone. I train shooting prone as well. I think it's essential, but it's hard to find those setups in the real world with an animal at that, that your limit of your range, and just have the perfect setup there. So you're usually having to get closer, because you're going to be shooting off your backpack frame, your whatever.
Yeah, just like with my son and his elk, he's a good shooter. He shot out to 1,200, 1,300 yards before, but it was a 300 and 380, 350 yard shots on a bull elk, steep angle to a bench. I had to put my pack down, max a bipod that's like you can shoot almost partially squat sitting, max that out, put it on the pack, take his pack, put it on the butt, make shots, and then the last shot on the bull to put him down, I had to boost him up partially into a tree. Like it's not perfect out there. So you
and the
do
thing
have to
too is
rehearse some of this stuff.
line of sight too when you're hunting is
Yeah.
like, especially when you're shooting a little further distance compared to archery. When you're archery, everything's in close and you're just worried about twigs not interfering with your arrow path. But when you're shooting like a couple 100 yards, you got to worry about line of sight between, tops of trees and stuff like that as well. So
Yeah, it's actually funny you said that because while I was crawling around and I was getting my kid ready, I actually had to do a max ordnance check to make sure that we clear this branch. And I just I did it quickly with my reticle where I zeroed it out, made sure I'm super steady, then ran my elevation turret to see if I'm doing a run line to make sure that I'm not going to contact that, or that he's not going to contact that on the shot trajectory, because it was my max ordnance at the high point of my trajectory to make sure that he can shoot through a window and actually clear all the sticks.
Yeah. Huh. Well, fascinating stuff, boys. As always. We've kind of been chatting here for 2 hours already.
Oh yeah, we didn't even get into scopes, projectile choices.
I have a list of stuff here
cartridges.
stuff you were talking about, like parallax and stuff like that, but we're gonna have to wait for another day. We'll have to get Ashley back on.
Yeah, it's fun. I love this stuff.
So
it's-
yeah, we'll do all that. But quickly, when's the new show air?
we're going live here on Wild TV at the first week of April. I don't actually know the exact airing times, but I'll share that with you once I know. I'm pretty nervous, but excited as well. And
Are you?
like I said before we started filming or started recording this, I've finished all my edits now. One little delivery to do, but now it's I feel freed up a little bit. I can start working on a couple other YouTube projects that I have lined up, and then before you
YouTube's
know
fucking an evil thing, man. Like YouTube is like just like Instagram or all the other shit where like like the algorithm wants you to feed the addiction. Where it's like you
Yeah.
have to post every day or else your views and your analytics just go to shit. Like it's crazy.
It's you're hitching to the bus, man. If you don't keep going with it, it just forgets all about you. So,
Yeah.
I've totally experienced that over the last year here. I've had a couple initiatives that have sort of helped subscribership, but by sort of working so hard on this linear TV content, I've sort of not been able to keep up on that, and it sure shows. So I'm just
But
looking forward
your
to getting.
focus though is the TV show, right? That's so. Do you have season
Ultimate,
1 completed?
yeah. My focus ultimately, if I'm being honest, is to support, is to put content on YouTube and the linear channel or on Wild TV. It's just a big challenge. Like we were talking about, I'm swamped, and I sort of had to pick a lane. And because it was a bit of a new world with some technical delivery requirements for the content that I gave Wild TV, I just had to, clamp down on that and make sure I delivered. But I think this year's workflow is gonna keep both streams going a lot more actively, because
Can
I
you
just don't.
can you put your YouTube, like put stuff on YouTube before you put it on TV?
I can. It's basically a gentleman's agreement or a handshake agreement, because I think they don't want to hamstring your growth curve on social, because ultimately, it's they don't want to be liable for, slowing you up, so to speak, just
Well,
to
it's only going to
provide them
benefit
content.
them if your like YouTube channel is bigger, more people are gonna figure
Yeah,
tune
yeah.
into. If they're scrolling through Sportsman Channel or Wild TV and they see, like, if you have a big following on YouTube and they're scrolling through the hunting channels and they see you, they're probably going to stop. Whereas if you didn't they would just keep going.
Yeah, and I'm at the beginning stages where I sort of both platforms are going to help boost the other. So I just want to respect the process because ultimately, as much as and I want to, I've showed teasers of a few of the hunts for sure, but I ultimately want to show the few hunts that I've filmed for last year, in their whole form on Wild TV first as a basically a thank you, so to speak. And ultimately, they'll decide if they want to play with me again, if I start, burning all the footage out socially beforehand and I don't get viewership on Wild, then I guess, they decide to go a different way. So just trying to manage it and learn it. I don't really know it. But yeah, I'm just trying to apply what I know.
Are you doing a season 2
I
for
think
Wild TV?
the opportunity's there, I believe.
Did I just totally put you on the spot?
No, not at all.
Well, I wasn't going to, asshole, but I didn't want to say that on.
But that's I don't mind being put on the spot. I mean, the truth is what the truth is. I haven't signed for it yet. The intent's there. I'm gonna take a hard look at how this goes, to be honest. And
It's a lot of work.
So will Wild TV. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
kind of addicted to it though. Like I really just want to push to learn how to tell stories that are engaging and I'm not there yet, but there's a story of the resident hunter that I want to tell, and I'm just at the beginning, so I just want
Well,
to
that's
keep
what's
pushing.
yeah. Sorry, buddy. That's what's cool. I wanted to get this in before we stop talking about it. About your show is that, like one thing about hunting shows is it's like not all of them, but most of them it's like they're doing a guided hunt and it's all like they're all exactly the same. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just like where you're turning
Yeah,
like and you with yours you specifically said you're not going to do it's going to be all like resident hunters, you following the story of different resident hunters throughout their journey and just showcasing all the different, unique aspects of the resident hunter, which
yeah,
is kind of cool. And
it's
unfortunately, the hard part with that is success rate goes down because if you're doing a guided hunt, your success rate goes up compared to if it's just a DIY and you're showcasing more of the DIY stuff. And
yeah, I am, and it's important for me to tell the resident hunter stories that are beyond myself for sure because there's multiple perspectives, but I have this crazy fantasy where I think that the story and the struggle of the resident hunter is just as valuable as having guaranteed guided hunts. And I think that the audience today is more ready for that story than they may have ever been. So
More relatable,
yeah,
more
it's
realistic,
like
more relatable.
every time I watch a canned hunting show, so to speak, it doesn't depict the way I hunt and the way I was brought up hunting. It has elements, sure, there's a harvest there. There are quite a few people out on the social platforms and some that are on TV that show a more authentic style of a hunt, and that's what I'm going for. Unfortunately, I wish the world would let me just keep pumping out hiking videos and calling them hunting films. But
That's I got my old hunting buddy and we call that extreme nature walking.
yeah, we call it hiking with guns. That's
Yeah,
what my buddy Jesse says. Well, you need to change your channel name to
yeah,
Hiking with Guns.
yeah.
And there's a what it's taught me though. It's taught me a lot about what to film besides hunting. And then, we're working really hard. I've got a lot of hunting planned this year and a lot of extended trips to try and get that success, even from the resident perspective, because it takes time and pressure kind of thing. So I know what to do. It's just trying to do it in 2 and 3 day chunks is where I've been running into some trouble there. So yeah, we've got some extended hunts this year, which I'm hoping.
Your mule deer, like the pursuit of your mule deer, like that is probably like that could have been a season. like all the way up from like the struggles of like you were going so hard and then it just like crashed and burned at the end. Whereas like normally it's like everyone's waiting to see this epic success, and it was like opposite. No
Boof.
offense.
No.
Crash your truck, get stuck in a hotel for 2 days, like bus home.
Yeah, it's you know, I think there's a good story there. If I could,
fucking for sure there is. Like, but that's the reality of like hunting's hard, man. And like hunting's not all just like you don't just go out and go hunting for a day or two and go shoot something. Like that's not the reality. Maybe on a guided hunt you do, but the reality is it's not like that. It's like it's going out, suffering,
grinding,
coming home, going back out, getting up early, nothing, coming back. It's just persistence. And like whoever like if you go hunt, it's playing the odds. I mean, obviously the more you hunt, the better you learn a lot of things of what to do and what not to do, and like that makes you a better hunter. But in reality, you still have to go grind it out, put your time in. Even when you've gone through all this stuff, it's still like I still hunt a lot of days of the year to kill all the animals. Yeah, sure, I punch a lot of tags, but I mean, I also put a shit ton. Like my average isn't very good. If you counted the number of days I put in for the amount of tags I push, it's not that great. Do you know what I mean? So like, but that's the reality of hunting. It's not easy. It's not like it's persistence. It's like constant work. It's grind. Like Derek said, it's the grind. But that's what's awesome about it.
I do. I love the grind too. I'm savage. Like I got 8 terabytes of grind without a kill at the end. Like that's what this equates to. And that's a lot. Like that's a lot. That's hours and hours. I think I have probably 15 hours of actual rolling footage from the mule deer season without a kill at the end. So, that 15 hours turns into a 3-minute segment at the beginning of hopefully next year's successful mule deer hunt. So, the work that it takes to put it into a show that's going to be relatable and digestible it's big, but I'm as addicted to it as I am to hunting, and I'm pretty darn addicted. So
I'd be curious actually to ask the general public, well, maybe not even the general public, the people who enjoy watching hunting shows, if all they're looking for is that kill shot at the end, because I stopped watching a lot of hunting shows, and no particular people, specifically, but it got boring after a while. Go out, they got a kill at the end. Be like, fuck off. That's not
the
how
same
it goes.
stuff.
That's
the thing I was talking about on TV. It's always the same. Like not all of them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're all the same, but like a lot of them were structured, and that was kind of like the hip thing to do, was to just get a guided hunt, show a little tiny bit of this, and then show like a third of it is like the kill shot, and like that's it. And it's like, okay, well, how many times can you fucking watch that? It's the same over and over and over and over.
I want to see the struggles. I want to see you not be able to get that shot. I want to see your miss, because that's freaking reality. And I'm more apt to watch that in the whole process, as long as it's entertaining. Obviously, you have to somehow keep me attracted to, what's happening next. The kill's great at the end if it happens, but I want to watch, you had some excitement, that's for damn sure. But you know what I mean? That's the part,
Yeah, because any experienced hunter knows that in between is where the killing's done. That's where the success is. It's not necessarily right at the end, or like if it just happened quick. I always think, I'm like, well, it's not luck, but there is an element of that. To me, I'm always looking for learning something from someone else, whether that's motivation, discipline, techniques, keeping your head in the game, because you don't know if that opportunity is going to come in the first 15 minutes, or it could be in the last 15 minutes when you're the most fatigued, where you're going in the deepest you were because you didn't have success on the quick, easy hunts, and you're going farther in there than before, and you have more pressure on you because you're running out of time. That's where I'm always interested in seeing what people are doing. That is hunting. That's the entertainment for me. It's not necessarily the kill, but it's relatable. You think, man, I've been in that. I've had that happen. How many times where you stop seeing deer, and then you're grinding, you're out there, you have that belief, and that's where you learn things from other people and learn how they address that hardship, that grind. that suffering.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, buddy, you're successful at everything else. I'm sure this is gonna be a success too. So
Hey, it'll be fun regardless. So
yeah, for sure. Anyway, I think we'll wrap it up, guys.
okay.
Eric, good information as always. So for the listeners, this is going to come out before the Sportsman show, so make sure you get down. Derek is doing, I don't know, probably cover a lot of the same stuff. It's going to be, I think it's about an hour and a half. You're going to be doing the presentation, Derek?
Yeah,
Is the plan?
I think we'll start off with differentiating two different tiers of weapons platforms, whether that's, your full customs. Well, we really don't need to discuss if you're doing a turnkey Gunworks type setup, because that's all going to be set up out of the box, but more like your semi-customs, optimizing the existing gear that you do have, how you kind of consolidate, put it all together. And then we might dig into some reloading, equipment choices, stuff of that nature, fundamentals of marksmanship, how we're gear managing and validating trajectories, truing up stuff. There's going to be a lot of things. So if you do have any questions too, like if you end up going to the show, just think of a couple questions that if there's something that maybe I can help you out with or make sense of that could help you.
Yeah,
definitely ask
that's
that
a good
ahead of
idea.
time.
And yeah, I'll start putting some stuff out on Instagram too. So we'll
Yeah, get those questions.
Get the ball rolling. And Stuckless, hopefully you talked about coming up. Hopefully you're coming up for that, so people will get to meet you and talk to you. And I think your show will be airing roughly around that time, so it'd be kind of cool to get people's attention and kind of push that as well. And
yeah,
it's gonna be a
for
lot of
sure.
fun.
I'm 100% coming. I'm at the BC Outdoor Show this coming weekend, and then I'll be coming up to the Interior Sportsman Show to hang with you guys and to just to
Maybe we'll all get a workout in together.
That sounds fun. Yeah.
Fucking running.
Oh,
Don't
running?
Don't even think about it, Toy. Don't even think about it.
I'll do
I knew
I
was gonna get a reaction out of Pete as soon as I said. He's like, "Fuck off." Anyway, boys, it was a lot of fun chatting with you guys.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Friends of NRA is your chance to support our Second Amendment rights and preserve America's hunting traditions. Join Friends of NRA at one of our 600 exciting events nationwide. From games to auctions and exclusive firearms, Friends of NRA events are your chance to support a cause you care about while having a great time with patriots in your community. Whether you're a seasoned shooter, an avid hunter or outdoorsman, or passionate about freedom, there's a place for you within Friends of NRA. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you. Stand up for freedom with the Friends of NRA. Friends of NRA is your chance to support our Second Amendment rights and preserve America's hunting traditions. Join Friends of NRA at one of our 600 exciting events nationwide. From games to auctions and exclusive firearms, Friends of NRA events are your chance to support a cause you care about while having a great time with patriots in your community. Whether you're a seasoned shooter, an avid hunter or outdoorsman, or passionate about freedom, there's a place for you within Friends of NRA. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you. Stand up for freedom with the Friends of NRA.